Noisecast.
Noisecast, or should I say Noisecast, episode 14. This time we have a special episode in English because our interview and our guest this time is speaking English, so it would be natural to have the whole episode in English. It's been a very hectic noise year in Finland, which kind of culminates to Harsh Waste Fest 2 that was held in Turku in August last month. Regarding to the episode this time, Pain Appendix was also playing, and this interview was conducted while he was visiting Finland. There has been many requests to translate or subtitle Noisecast episodes to English, but it's a relatively tedious task to do, and so far we have decided, or I have decided, not to go for it. But this time, just for you English understanders and speakers, we have this special episode. And before the Pain Appendix interview, we will go through some recent Finnish noise tapes. But the first tape that we have here today is not actually a recent one, it's from 2020. It is the Ablaatio tape by Piessa, which is a relatively new act, but the material on this tape has been recorded over a 10-year period, or so at least the Bandcamp says. Piessa material is very unique in a way that is almost a hypnotic-like state when you listen to the tapes. They are very relaxed material and have this meditative feel to it. The two tapes that I have from Piessa are both have this handmade feel. They have a unique smell to them, which is very nice touch, and have also these small artifacts attached to them. But the material itself has very different kind of sound sources. I think there is lots of recorded field recordings, but there also seems to be very much of this broken equipment feeling. At least the Piessa Bandcamp has variety of different kind of instruments, which also says broken audio equipment, which really is present in the Piessa sound. The tape length, I can't remember how long it is, but it feels that the length is justified. You really get immersed to the feel and the world of Piessa's sound. Piessa has a Bandcamp, and I will be including these to the description so you can find out for yourself. But I will play a little sample of Piessa's material. The next tape is a new tape. It's from the year 2024 and it's called, the artist is called Skargård, which recently played his first live gig. I think it was in Tampere. I wasn't able to attend that gig, but I heard that it was a really good one. I think it had only acoustic sound sources, like a wheelbarrow full of stuff, metal stuff, and it was just banging them live without any sort of real equipment. And that seems like an interesting choice. It's a little bit like how new boyfriends gigs usually start with just the sound of acoustic metal. Nevertheless, Skärgård has released at least 2 or maybe 3 tapes already, and this one is called Egen Frid or Rauha. The sound is very much how I thought when I heard about the live gig, and the tape is quite the same. Very much of this acoustic metal sounds. I don't know if there is like any other equipment used other than the possible recorder that was used to capture the sound of relentless handling of metal objects. Nevertheless, the material is very nice, and when you crank up some volume on your stereo, it's really just like Piessa, Skargard. It is in his own way very immersive sound. I'll play a little bit of material from this Egen Frid Oma Rauha tape. Last but definitely not least is a project called Ieskadulla. The tape is called Pakkala. Ieskadulla has released 1 tape before this one, and the project is really showing improving steps all the time. This tape is very harsh noise, I would say. You can also, Ieskadulla does not have a Bandcamp or anything like that, and even this tape, I had to do some work to find a distro that actually has these tapes. The material on the tape relies very heavily on like good old-fashioned pedal noise, or at least I think it is, just running sources through bunch of pedals, feedback, and all that good stuff. The sound production is really like, it's a thick and very powerful sound, which at least almost every noise enjoyer should enjoy. The only downside with this tape is that it's way too short. It's like maybe 11 minutes or something like that. And I think it's divided on 2 sides or something like that. But it feels really short. Just when you are like getting into the tape, it ends. Which in a way is kind of, it's a nice trick. And I really hope that there will be a Ieskadulla full length at some point. I would love to have a CD full of this kind of stuff. So let's hope that we will see Ieskadulla full length sometime in the near future. Here is a little bit of material from the Pakkala tape. Now it's time for the main course, so to speak. Pain Appendix arrived on my knowledge maybe a few years ago. Pain Appendix has been going on for quite some time, but for some reason it really never landed on my radar. But when he came first time to play in Finland, before that, a little bit before that was when I really started to get into the project. Pain Appendix sound, I would myself describe it as industrial noise. But especially the Manuhypnos CD on Freak Animal really took Pain Appendix to a whole new level. It's absolutely my favorite CDs from that year. There's no doubt about that. But what Manuhypnos did, it was really surprising. The material before that I had heard was really good and had this very intense sound. But Manuhypnos has this almost sophisticated feel to it. It does have those punchy moments of really harsh and relentless noise, but there is also, it's taking its time to build up the sound and even use some small detailed sounds, so to speak. And the live gig that he played this year in Turku was devastatingly good. That was like one of the best noise gigs that I've seen for some time. There was a lot of physical action and there was really thick, harsh and brutal sound. And everything was in control. There was never a moment that you would kind of notice that the set is escaping his hands. It was always in control. Highly enjoyable to watch, and also very good performing, so to speak. And this Pain Appendix interview, like I said before, was conducted on that same trip when Pain Appendix was in Finland. So, without further ado, let's let Mr. Pain Appendix tell his story.
My name is Pete Jennings, and I do Pain Appendix. It's my alias for noise industrial, and I've been doing that since 2015 is when I started recording officially, the end of 2015. It's pretty much the start of my journey with recording and playing and releasing things.
Yeah.
2016 would be like my first shows and stuff.
Assuming that this will air, it will be at the Noisecast. And in Finland we say Noisecast.
Noisecast.
Yeah, so we don't need to talk about much about the topics that were covered in the White Centipede interview. When the first time I got exposed to Pain Appendix, it was European release. There was a split with Black Letter Jesus, and that was basically something that made it to like distributors. And before that, at least I don't have a recollection, did I notice your existence, but I think there was just like self-released mostly.
A lot of self-release stuff in the beginning, especially. My recollection might be hazy, but I think there might have been the Trapdoor tape before that. Trapdoor tapes out of Australia.
Yes.
But probably right about the same time, so.
Yeah, and the Trapdoor was a little bit shady label, so the circulation was fairly limited.
Right.
But quite quickly from that, you started to establish connections to Finland, as well as like coming over to Europe. Finland seems to be one of the kind of intended destinations, and now when we are covering mostly Finnish noise in this podcast, it might be interesting for listeners to know how and why Finland was kind of among the things in Europe where you were focusing.
Yeah, so real quick, I'd like to just say in my experience, and for whatever this is worth, I don't know, but this is just kind of my experience, and with Pain Appendix, like what would be my generation, I'm 36. A lot of guys my age that have been into noise in the States, they were around for the early Summer Scum days, No Fun, and there is a lot of, I don't want to just say clickiness, but when I started doing noise, I just simply wasn't connected to those people. I didn't really know anybody. And so putting out my tapes, self-releasing them, trading with some people that I knew from the metal scene and punk scene that were into noise, slowly starting to meet people, playing some more shows. It just kind of happened that, I had tried to trade with some American labels. It's not really useful to name names, but I remember giving my tapes to specific people. And it would just so happen that other European labels, Trapdoor and Nil by Mouth, they were interested in releasing stuff for me. I don't know if it was because the content was, it matched maybe more, it was more appropriate, kind of had like a European feel, I guess. I don't know if if you would say that or another European person would think that, but I just seem to have always clicked more with the European electronics and noise scene for whatever other reason.
It's not only about Finland, as you have the Nil by Mouth, as mentioned, is Italian, but they are very known for this vile and sort of exploitative content and quite rough noise. And Antipathic from he is also leaning to kind of dark side of noise.
Yeah.
And Trapdoor has also sort of a bias to all sorts of dysfunctional things.
And it could be, like, I'll be the first to admit in the beginning, it was really important to me to, I've always loved the nasty, gritty, filthy stuff. I can trace it back to being a kid and being obsessed with horror movies, or even just the shit I would see around my own house with my mother and father, and that always seemed more like home to me. So that was really important in the beginning, to exploit those sort of images and ideas. And maybe when I passed some of those tapes to the American labels, they took them, and I got some positive feedback, but nobody was ever enthusiastic about releasing something. So, but the Finnish connection, for the sake of the podcast, I'll just go back a little further. When I was a teenager, I dropped out of high school and I left town, and I was living in a kind of squat in Baltimore City, and I was always into underground music, grind and hardcore and metal and stuff, black metal, but I had a roommate who was a freak for Scandinavian hardcore and Finnish hardcore, and because I could play blast beats, I could play faster than most of these other punk kids. When he saw me play drums for the first time, he was like, "Dude, you have to be my drummer for my Finnish worship hardcore band called Vatus." And I loved it. He showed me, I'm going to chop all these names up, but Kaos and Lama and Ristitute and tons of bands, and Swedish stuff too, and Norwegian bands. But that kind of broke my mind open to more Finnish music, and later on getting more into the Finnish black metal stuff, and this kind of it all happened so fast. You start discovering things, and then it's like it cracks open your whole world. But I remember getting a copy of the Sore Throat Bizarre Uproar.
It's a 7-inch.
Yeah, and I think there's another project on that. I can't.
Facial Maze.
Yeah, exactly. And diving into noise was difficult at first. I didn't really understand it. Like, I liked noisy black metal. I liked noisy hardcore, grind and stuff. But it was a slower progression for the noise thing. But still, the first impression of like the earliest memories I have of Finnish noise, it always seemed like this was a sacred place for just the purest, straight, like from the mainlining the power source. There was always never, it never seemed like there was much filter or it just seemed like total freedom. Just the fact that a band like Bizarre Uproar could do a split with Sore Throat, and then I remember later, a couple years later, getting the Bastard Noise and Grunt stuff, and just seeing where the worlds crossed over, and I think some of my favorite noise projects and industrial noise projects like Gelsomina and Cloma, and these were like the first time I heard these projects, I was like, this is the best stuff, and just saw it was always more raw and political without being pretentious, like not really political, but just kind of like the biggest extreme and pure noise, like the spirit of pure freedom and noise. I always gravitated towards that because it seemed like if you look at other scenes, there's examples of extremity, of course, in America also, of course, but just something always kind of drew me to the Finnish noise. With the risk of sounding redundant, I think that's the most powerful point for me. I'll get to some other connections, personal ties, and whatnot, and like the actual beginning of developing relationships here. But that's going back. That's kind of like the start of it. So it kind of, I guess you could say, in the back of my mind, I had planted a seed with the Finnish hardcore stuff just being fucking vicious, relentless, thrashing, noisy, hardcore, D-beat hardcore, whatever you want to call it. And then getting into the Finnish noise stuff. This is before I played noise. I didn't start actually recording till 2015, but this is in the mid-2000s, hearing for the first time Bizarre Uproar, Grunt, Cloma, Six Seed, or Gelsomina, and kind of subconsciously deciding at that point already, like, this is some of the best stuff here. Just the pure intent, pure, even the nastiest, most vile tapes that I could get my hands on. There was always, maybe this is in my mind, maybe I made this up in my imagination, but I always felt like there was also some, I don't want to say comic value or comedic value, but there's just layers of, it didn't seem contrived, like it was all in good fun, but it was real also. Yeah. Maybe is a way to put it. I don't really know the right way to articulate that exactly. It's more like just a feeling, like you get it, and it's like you just get this sense that like this is the real stuff. It's not an act, but it's also not contrived. You know, it's not like phony baloney. Yeah. Edgelord stuff. Yeah. Even if it's trying to be edgy. Maybe that makes sense.
Yeah, well, I think that is one of the criticism, or at least blame to be edgy, or trying to be edgy, but I don't think that's the, like...
the intent.
Yeah, because something like Bizarre Uproar is, or myself, it has been lifelong journey, what happens also privately. And it's not like you're trying to be edgy on your own. Like nobody's watching, and then like it's like weird idea that people would be, for sake of being edgy, doing what they do. And I think there is also diversity in content and the sound, like thinking about Klama or Storm EC or Gelsomina, how it's said, like movie references. Sometimes it's personal, sometimes it's almost like science fiction or dystopian visions. Sometimes it's more perverse. Right. But there's a lot of things that have been kind of personal importance for the artist, not just like let's be edgy type of thing.
Yeah, I've always gotten the sense of that, like a certain level of sincerity is a good word to use. As a teenager playing in a lot of punk bands and hardcore bands and grindcore bands, and being surrounded by a lot of the same type of thinking and same sort of politics and social politics, and a lot of the same mentality, and thinking that this is the only way to think, this is the right way to think, kind of, and not seeing a lot of diversity there. And I think as a young teenager, it was exciting because it was different than the mainstream ideas.
Yeah.
But then after however many years, realizing everybody thinks the fucking same, and getting exposed to more underground stuff, more extreme stuff, or just not necessarily extreme, but just diverse, different ways of thinking. And I don't just mean like political projects, but just different ideas, things that, let's say like an artist utilizing symbols and ideologies or exploiting certain themes that you see them and you're like, what is this? Like, this is dangerous.
Yeah.
Like I shouldn't. I don't know if other people can see that I have this. Yeah. When you're a teenager, you're. I'll speak for myself. I can remember being at shows where kids had Burzum shirts on, and like back then, my friends, giving them shit like, "Why are you wearing a Burzum shirt?" Yeah. That's racist. This type of stuff. So having that sort of coming from that sort of social world, social scene, and diving deeper into just dissenting. What's the word? Just things that make you think. Like I love stuff that just fucks your brain. It feels like your brain is being fist fucked, and I felt that way a lot. Like the Revisionist Knowledge CD. It's very cryptic, but that CD had my I'm like, that was like what is this? What is going on? And I think that was the first time I ever heard the word revisionist used. And I remember looking up that word and being like, what the fuck? This is.
I think the word itself very far from expressing anything
concrete.
Explicit,
right?
Like nothing. Right. But then when you see the word, most people will make conclusions.
Sure. But this was a long time ago for me, and I'm 36, so I can't tell you what year that was. I just, I didn't know anything. I just was learning a lot from the things I was discovering and consuming. And then I think now I see that word actually thrown around a lot, revisionist. That's like it's almost like a clickbait word. But at that point, I never heard anybody use that word.
I think Finnish scene has been notorious exactly for a reason. What you mentioned, that everything goes type of attitude, which is almost unheard in most of the other countries.
Very much.
And it's obviously stirring some discussions in Finland as well, but but traditionally comes from the industrial culture where the idea was always to
make you think.
Yeah,
I think what's worse than not having any idea. What's even worse is thinking that you're right. It's not just not knowing. Like, the ignorance is one thing, but my biggest problem is people pretending or acting like they know exactly what the right answer is.
Yeah.
To me, that's even worse than, just being clueless or not knowing something.
Yeah.
Because nobody fucking knows everything,
Yeah.
And I'm not a scholar. I dropped out of high school. I'm not going to pretend like I'm some political expert or some philosophy major or something like that. But if you get on some forums or if you get talking to some people, just using the noise scene as an example, and some kind of political discussion pops up, it's so it makes you just not want to fucking talk to people, man.
Yeah.
It seems like pointless to try to talk to people who can't.
Yeah. But I think also the idea of having like daily politics in noise is kind of lame.
Yeah.
Like, especially if there's like, let's say, some people would say there's political leanings in the Finnish noise, like especially the old school.
Yeah.
I think it's very vague, and it's at best would be something metapolitical. Like, it's not something concrete of this moment necessary. It's more like the ideas behind the politics.
What appealed to me about Finnish noise a lot, in the Finnish noise scene, was just kind of like the anything goes. It really seemed like the sacred grounds for real, sincere, heavy noise. You know, with no limits.
Yeah. I have a strict policy of not making interviews sober, so
Yeah.
it's very mild drink, anyways. But yeah,
Is this one gone already?
Yeah, but it was just a cider. The tape I mentioned was the Black Leather Jesus tape, and the split. What was kind of, I would assume that most of Finnish people who know, like early stages, bought some of your stuff. It might be that tape.
Yeah, maybe.
And also, Black Leather Jesus is traditionally very appreciated among the Finns. I think most of the Finnish guys, like old league guys like Freak Animal or Filth and Violence, have made some sort of collaboration with Ramirez throughout decades. And that was almost like, even if nobody knew Pain Appendix, you would get kind of a free ride to decks of people through that. How did the tape happen? Was it your idea or labels?
Somehow I got connected with a Russian guy, Alexander Konyev.
Yeah.
Do you know this guy?
The Filth and Violence. He made a couple of releases.
Yeah, the organoid stuff, I think, was on Filth and Violence.
Yeah.
We had gotten connected, I can't remember how, and we were doing a lot of correspondences, trading and whatnot. And then we decided to exchange some source material and start working on a collab. And this became known as, we've decided on the name Anal Relaxing Popper Sniffers, ARPS.
Yeah.
And I thought the material was quite good, actually. It was kind of like just sheer feedback, ear bleeding, PE, harsh noise stuff. Nasty. I was in a fucked up place at the time, so I think that comes through a lot of the noise at that time. And that dude proved to be a character in himself. So the two of us working on that, I think it worked great. And when it came time to release it, I think he pitched it to Posse, and this is through him, so I don't know what was actually said, but we pitched the split idea to Posse, but Posse didn't want to release a split.
Yeah.
We tried to figure out how we're going to release it. That dude ended up falling off the face of the earth, pretty much, and dropping out of the noise scene. He ripped a bunch of people off and owed a lot of people money, so I kind of detached myself from him and that project, and we still had the Black Leather Jesus material. We thought that was a perfect combination. Anal Relaxing Popper Sniffers and Black Leather Jesus. I had the BLJ material. I thought it was good because it reminded me of the old 90s style BLJ. It was kind of slow burn, like long form Black Leather Jesus, but it was strong. It just sounded like the perfect kind of tape noise, saturated, harsh, classic BLJ sound. And I'm like, man, I can't just waste this material. We got to do something with it. So I had some tracks that I had recorded, and I kind of, I ditched some stuff and put together what I thought sounded cohesive for a side of a split. And I asked Richard if he wanted to do it with Pain Appendix instead of ARPS. He said sure. And because the thing with Posse didn't work out, I was trading and buying a lot of stuff from Nil by Mouth, so I pitched it to Aldo, and he loved it. And we had all the artwork pretty much completed too, which was really nice. If you've got that tape, then you saw it was like nice choice images, rough, kind of just like really rough fag, like hardcore fag porn, like brutal stuff. Like one dude's got a cinder block hanging from his cock, all stretched out. Really good images. And some good needle porn, like guys just shooting up with their cocks out and shit, which seemed relevant to me at the time. So, and then that's the story of that. I don't know whatever happened to that guy Alexander or his projects, Flagellatio, Orgasmus, Organoid.
You did other releases, but it was starting to come to the point when you actually had like just a couple of years away from having like full-length albums. Or I don't know if the 100,000 tape was originally meant to be album, or because it came out as a tape and then it was reissued as a CD.
Yeah, that was one piece from the beginning. It was released as a tape, so it had to be split into sides. But
Yeah.
the proper format for that would, from the beginning, would have been the CD.
Yeah.
CD version. That relationship happened pretty naturally. I had somehow, I can remember first coming across the Satato Awada label. I don't think, in America anyways, nobody knew what that label was. Maybe just having my finger to the pulse of the scene here. Coming across that pretty early on in his beginning stages, buying pretty much every batch he put out. I recorded that stuff, the Toward Infinity material, and I really liked how it sounded. I felt like finally, in however many years since I had started, I was starting to, for the first time, really, like something clicked. Like I'm really starting to figure out how to fucking record, right? That was a hard process for me, man. I'm like a caveman trying to get shit to work. Always doing something different, setting up differently. And I basically, everything I had learned up to that point, I had used on that album. And I think that comes through on that release, because I was finally able to like achieve sonically and recording wise things that I really wanted to.
Looking from my perspective, where the band was like known from almost like a one split tape, and suddenly over here, like everybody was talking about Pain Appendix because of the tape that sold out in like a matter of at least days or something, and it sold so quickly. Obviously, the amount of print run wasn't that huge, but it was repressed on the CD quite quickly, and then quite soon you started to hear news that this guy is actually coming to tour in Finland, which is not, which is quite unusual. But then also besides that, you seem to know a lot of like Finnish guys and be in touch. Like suddenly they're like meeting this guy for a session, collaborating with this, or these guys are with you on a like 4-band tape, and like everybody in Finland suddenly in touch with you.
I'm a victim of my generation. The internet. I'm an internet kid, and Instagram definitely helped because it's immediate. You know, snail mail is great. It's nostalgic. Like get a piece of mail. There's nothing better than getting a piece of mail, right?
Yeah.
A handwritten letter or something. But let's face it. Like even compared to email, you send a text message, direct message. It's there fucking immediately, you know, and you see it right away. Email, I might not even notice for a few days.
Yeah.
So that's definitely part of it. Some of it could be coincidence. My wife is Finnish too, although she has no real ties to the Finnish noise scene. But I think also her presence on the internet, maybe she's friends with a lot of people from the metal and noise scene, just from trading. Maybe one of my first connections was Taro.
Yeah, for Rotant.
Trading with him, getting his stuff from labels, loving the sounds, kind of like organic sounds, lots of glass breaking, and just sounded like the perfect fucking sounds, like just raw, organic noise, but like blown out kind of, like in a blender or something sometimes. And not to circle back, but and also kind of carrying on the legacy of this sort of foul, filthy, but also kind of funny, like, but not in a, I don't know how to explain it, man. Like, kind of, some of it is kind of like retard humor, but also it's so sincere that you get the sense that it's not a joke. Like, this is really, and if you meet Taro, I think you know exactly what I mean. Like, and he's a great dude. It makes, when you meet him and you get to know him and you talk to him, it's like, this is Rotat. This is fucking, this is exactly.
When he made a first tape, and he was saying that his influences are Taint, Smell and Quim, and Odell. If you know Odell from...
of course. Yeah. So when is he from the Netherlands?
Yeah.
Odell?
So when you think about those bands, how they sound and how like demented humor, especially Smell and Quim, has
Odell too has a lot of demented humor stuff.
Yeah, and the humor might be something that is putting off people, both like the serious folks as well as people who like it clean, because it's like dirty, dark, very pitch black humor.
Hung like a horse. I actually went to his house to rehearse for the Apex Rodent stuff. And he gave me the grand tour of the Rotat compound. He showed me one office of his, which is all collection of a bunch of awesome collection of things, and went to his second office, and it was all vinyl and just, a great collection of stuff. And he pulled out a little crossbow, like this little tiny crossbow thing, and it looked like a real crossbow, but it was so small. I had to ask him, like, does it work? Is it a real crossbow? And he's like, yeah, it's my crossbow.
Yeah.
I'm like, can we shoot it? And he's like, my wife took all my arrows. Can't have all the fun, I guess. And the way he said it, I just was fucking dying, man. He's really a good, solid guy, unique sense of humor.
Yeah. And sonically, I would say that Rotat is, in his absolute best, he's right there in the very top of the harsh noise what comes from Finland, and I think it might be only because of the visuals and titles and all that he doesn't necessarily get same recognition as some of the
the heavyweights, the big dogs.
But I think there is he gets plenty of appreciation for the unique way of doing things. I think he had a quite good vision from early on what it's going to be. So it was only a few technical things he has been improving, but the idea what Rotat is visually and sonically, it was right from the beginning.
I think it's some of the best new noise. I say new, I know he's been doing it for a while, but in recent years, last 10 years, 15 years, whatever. And I've been doing stuff for just under 10 years. So for me, when I reached out to him, I felt like, not that he was like a peer, but, sometimes when you contact somebody who's been doing noise for a long time, you sort of feel like, I sort of feel like I'm bugging them. Like, hey, do you want to do a split or do you want to? And I thought maybe this was a good chance to connect with someone who's, newer.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And he was happy to do the split, and I think his noise is some of the best stuff out, current harsh noise. It's it hits all the marks for me. And then the 4-way split, that was just a fun idea, just to kind of try to do something that was a little reminiscent of the old days, the transatlantic death match. It's kind of goofy, but having fun with collaborating with artists on the other side of the world. And Maskhead, I love all the Maskhead stuff that I have. I liked a lot, and I never corresponded with him. I just met him recently. The mysterious, anonymous Maskhead. that was the beginnings of like the actual where you could say like, okay, like this is when I did a split with a Finnish artist, and that was before Satato Awada. So I mean, I guess you can see sort of a connection, relationships being formed, and that sort of thing taking root.
How did you decide to come to play in Finland? Who were the people you were in touch, and how it was organized?
Always wanted to come here, man. Before I met my wife, before I made Noise, when I was a kid, I always wanted to travel in Northern Europe.
Yeah.
Not just Finland, but Norway, Sweden, and I think just because my obvious affection or fondness towards the music here and the Finnish scene, it was just a no-brainer. Like I had to fucking come here. Janne from Atrophist was instrumental in helping with the shows. It was kind of like a group effort. So Janne from Atrophist, Vilho helped with the Oulu gig. I know he wasn't the one who booked it, but he was instrumental in helping arrange that. Antti, the guy who does Absolute Key, he set up the show in Tampere.
Yeah.
And I just winged it. I didn't know how it was going to go. I figured even if the shows bomb or like if people don't show up, at least I'm still here and meeting people who I've been trading with and talking with. And then I thought to invite Will Worth to tag along for some of the dates. He only played Oulu, but we got to come out here, and so I thought maybe bringing Worth with me, some more people will come to the shows. Actually, we were supposed to play Turku, but that got canceled for our nefarious affiliations.
Yeah, but I think it's very little to do with you. It was more like a backlash of all like other things.
Yeah.
So it's not really like that in particular your work would have been.
No, but I know they weren't happy that I was playing Obscurex in Latvia. But
yeah, can you believe such a gentleman?
And I think he was quite satisfied that there was still controversy over his name, and he's not even in Finland anymore.
Yeah, and had not been organizing anything for like a few years.
Yeah, but anyways, so the split with Rotot, then the four-way split with Rotot, Maskhead, and Legless, pitching the Toward Infinity stuff to Satatsu Awada.
Yeah.
How do you say that?
100,000.
Satatsu Awada. I'm just going to keep trying to say it my way. And that tape was well received, so I think that was I just got lucky, I think, asking Vilho to release it. He liked it, put it out, and if I had released it on an American label, maybe I wouldn't have gotten so much recognition here in Finland. So that was kind of coincidental, I think. Like the ties I had been forming, and that just kind of, that was like a happy accident or something. And it kind of just blossomed. It just helped everything kind of just worked out the way it's supposed to, I guess you could say, in a way, I feel like I've developed long-lasting friendships with people here. Here I am, a year later, playing with some of the same people. And
I released the new album, but that was also sort of coincidence.
Yeah.
It was originally meant to be elsewhere, and then I was just like asking when is the next release coming up, and you were some uncertain about it.
Yeah.
And then I made some inquiries for the labels who had been doing your stuff before, and label who was originally going to release it making sure that I'm not stepping anyone's toes. I'm known for a lot of things, but one thing I'm known for is I'm usually getting things done. So it was very quickly.
I got to say, that was the most impressive, not to toot your horn there, but that was like, I had just passed that material along to you just I was looking for feedback to say, like, you know, like, check this out, something I've been working on. And I think from that conversation, it was like 2 weeks later, the CD was in production. It's like immaculate, unparalleled production time.
Yeah, but the material was so strong that there was like an instant feeling that it should be done, and it also should be done kind of now. When it like sometimes there is this like a moment when something needs to be happening now, not like after 3 years or something. That when you have this kind of a heat of the moment, and then you just know that now would be a right time. Yeah,
and all the artwork was ready.
Yeah.
So
I think you have received fairly good attention elsewhere as well. It's not all about Finland, but you played in, you gave interview in the White Centipede Noise, which I guess was quite well received and got like attention. And you played in...
I played in Bangkok.
Bangkok.
And Osaka and Tokyo.
Yeah.
That was incredible. Sometimes not to sound like a softie, but sometimes it takes a while for me to process the stuff because it seems like I can't believe I'm playing a fucking show in Japan or wherever it is, Finland too, anywhere. But the shows went great. Everything was just like the legends all behold, the notorious sound systems in Japan, monstrous sound, and lots of people were there. Everybody's excited to hear noise, to see noise. So all that stuff worked out well, and well received. I think I've played more shows abroad this year than in the States probably, which is kind of funny.
But also I noticed when I compare your first visit in Finland to this time, there was a notable advancement in a live show. I would say that the first show, obviously I saw only Tampere, which was, let's say, not bad PA, but it was sort of like a daytime matinee type of thing that you had this rehearsal space, PA thing going on, and then now when you played, there was, for example, the Rotat collaboration was nice, but then the actual show in Harshweish Fest, it was expressed that it was one of the highlights of the festival. And when you think about it, you have Anencephalia and some of the legends playing, and then people are saying like Pain Appendix was among the top of the performers. It sort of indicates that it is quite high level of performance. I don't know how you see if you have been developing or kind of honing your skills, so to say.
Well, it's definitely flattering to hear. And obviously it makes you feel good knowing that people appreciate it or enjoy it. Sometimes with live shows, it's fucking 50-50, man. I wish I could say, like, now I'm at a point where every show I play is knocking it out of the ballpark. But sometimes I can rehearse every day for a week leading up to a gig and then play the gig and I feel like I bomb. And something like this Harshweish Fest, I rehearsed for a couple hours before I left the States. Prior to that, I hadn't been touching my gear for months probably. Part of it is just kind of being in the right mindset and just being ready to fucking kill it, knowing the gear, of course, but it really helped that PA was, even if the gear was fucking up, it still sounded good. It was so powerful, you know? Yeah, and that show last year in Tampere, that's something about that whole space and the vibe there it just seemed like, maybe you're right, the daylight and the PA wasn't bad, but it sort of felt like being in a rehearsal space or something. I don't know. Now, the Helsinki show, on the other hand, last year, I think that was one of the best shows I've ever played. Like, the performance there, everything sounded fucking intense. Everything sounded the way it was supposed to in my mind, you know? And that was in a garage.
And then in Turku, now really loud PA, which is loud in a good way. Because it's not like when you go in like a music club, they usually have massive subwoofers.
Mm-hmm.
But then the mids and highs are really quiet. So
Yeah.
they make the volume out of the like a sub bass rumbling.
And it loses that dynamic.
Yeah, the whole kind of punch and ripping power is
lost.
missing.
Yeah.
So yeah, this is almost like an ideal place for noise show, even if it's fairly big hall. But yeah, the Tampere live show, it was more like art gallery show, so its atmosphere is different. But also like the technical aspects, like how the set is built, what type of sounds you had. I think in Turku there was more like advanced way of like a composition of show. You clearly had like idea how the set is going to be kind of upwards going and have a kind of climax. And there was this interaction with the audience. I sort of forced you on the stage away from the floor, but then
I'm glad you did, though.
Yeah.
Because you had a good point. Like, not that I feel as though everybody needs to see what I'm doing, but, you know, I'm playing Finland far from home, and there's 100 people here, and if I'm on the floor, nobody can see anything, and who knows what the sound would have been like down there, too, in front of the PA. You know, but I think that the space definitely has a lot to do with it, because as I really aspire to be the kind of person that can play any setting and still fucking play a great show, because I think that those people are out there. I can't tell you one by name, but you know, you give them a distortion pedal and a chain with a contact mic, and whether it's in a kitchen or a club, like, they're still gonna fucking kill it. And I think that's part of getting better at playing live, is kind of like, it's always like a battle with the PA, like the acoustics of the room and the PA. And you don't know what it's going to be like till you get there. And when you do the sound check, you have to figure it out right then and there. Okay, I have to fight the mids or the lows, or tweak my mix a certain way so that it sounds optimal. That space, I mean, it's this large fucking room with the ceilings being so loud. I mean, so high. And the fact that it's all concrete and it's a long space, I think all of that like helps with the big PA, the thunderous PA. Not to mention the location and the site itself, like you said, like, not just the camo nets, but, you know, you're in this kind of like industrial park, back sequestered off from everything else. It seems like you're in like you're in a fucking special zone, man. Like, you know, it's a private gig. Everyone's that was on the flyer. Private show. You're invited. But, you know, it's like it's kind of tucked away in a special spot. So all these elements, the physical components and also the metaphysical, let's call it, components, all kind of play a role in the performance. And of course, you know, knowing what you're doing. I've tried to get better with every show I play, so, you know, I'm happy that it went well and people seem to think that there's an advancement, like you're saying, obvious improvements from last year, and I'm always trying to get better, so that's good. mission accomplished for me.
Finland compared to other places you played, is there any like significant, like you mentioned about Japan, which is obviously very unique with its like my own experiences with playing in 20,000 watts club, for example.
Yeah.
Which is like absolute classic venue, and the power of that PA was just beyond what even people own, like any companies own in Finland.
Yeah. When you played there, let me ask you this, because both the venues I played, the PAs were monstrous, but they didn't lose any dynamic.
Yeah.
It wasn't like it was all low end, like you were talking about. Happens a lot of times. You could hear the highest pitched squelching feedback frequencies, mid range, like like the scraping I do, that's like mid range frequencies, all the way to the thunderous thumping low end stuff. It was all present. That was the biggest deal for me. It was like, not only is it loud as fuck, but it's all the dynamics were there too. Back to your question.
Do you feel there's like some sort of cultural or like atmospheric difference?
I think so. I mean, atmospheric is kind of obvious because it's Finland, and I don't know if you would describe Finland as an isolated place, but some of these towns are pretty far away, and there's not a lot of people here, compared to, in the States where some cities have millions and millions of people just in a city, like New York City or Chicago or Los Angeles or something like that. I think Helsinki's the biggest city, right?
Yeah.
And how many people are there?
If you count Helsinki with all the capital region, I think it's 1 million, but Helsinki city is smaller. But all the capital area with Vantaa and Espoo, it's like 1 million.
So the atmosphere, I think, and this has come up in other topics, other places, the tightness of the Finnish noise scene, and I'm not going to speak like an authority on this thing. I'm not the diplomat for, Finland, U.S. or anything like that. But it has been discussed before as kind of like the culture here in the noise scene, where it's welcoming for the new guys, and there's criticism, but it's constructive criticism. So, if somebody could be doing something better, I think Finns here, you guys like to talk about that and suggest things and are helpful and supportive for new blood and new projects and younger guys. And I think that is the cultural part that could be seen as different in the States. My experience, of course, there's probably examples of guys sort of like ushering in new blood and helping out newcomers or whatnot. But in my experience, I think what's more common is this sort of cliquey, back-patting, social circles, like a lot of what the internet would call maybe gatekeeping or something like that, where you have to know somebody or shake the certain hands with people, and in a way, I think it's just the typical pay your dues way of, you gotta put the work in, you gotta play shows, you gotta put out your own tapes and do your own thing. I think that's real and that's legitimate, but there's also a lot of more of like a social scene aspect that's kind of like in some ways too representative of the American noise culture.
Yeah.
Compared to Finland, it seems more about the noise and more supportive for people. If you want to make noise, then come on, let's do it.
For example, Janne from Atrophist, I think he has organized I think he mentioned something like 60 shows or something, which is quite a lot of shows.
It is a lot.
And there's always been these projects that nobody really knows about. They are kind of outskirts of noise that he's just like, if somebody's interested to come to play, he's usually very open about getting them to play. And there's never been this kind of, let's say, negative hierarchy. It's the same with like a 100,000, for example, that he will reject anything that is crappy.
Yeah.
If you send him a bad artwork or bad noise, he's not taking any of that.
Yeah.
But he is very supportive in encouraging, like, doing it better.
And he's not afraid to release, as long as it's good.
Yeah.
He's not afraid to release something that's brand new.
Yeah.
Like new artists.
Yeah. And it's same with the Freak Animal. There's a lot of first albums of completely unknown artists has been released.
Brand new.
Yeah. But it's in Finland, I think it's been very common that almost everybody is welcomed.
And maybe that's because of the atmosphere, like the fact that it's kind of isolated from mainland Europe, from other, you know, I mean, Sweden's right there, but it's not like you can just go to Sweden or Estonia. Like, Finland's its own.
Yeah, it's almost like an island.
Yeah. Maybe at once upon a time, there was a relationship between, like, St. Petersburg and noise or industrial music and Helsinki.
They
I don't
used
know.
To be. They actually used to be. Russians were coming. There was like Noises of Russia. Was this group who organized these tours, what were happening in Finland and Russia. And some of the, I wasn't really involved in anything else than playing in some of those shows, but I wasn't really friends with or really in contact with the guys. But
and even then, I'm sure Finland had. I mean, it's not like this. There were two scenes that were combined or something like that. I'm sure even then, with that example, there's not a lot of people making noise. Anyone who is making noise, you kind of know about it pretty quickly, right?
Yeah, usually word travels. At least I tend to hear about new people who are starting to do something worth of attention.
And I think maybe that's another big difference in the States is it could be maybe at times it feels like an oversaturation. There's just too much shit going on sometimes, and there's such a great division of different parts of the scene, you know?
Yeah. I think US is big enough that you have a independent local scenes.
Yeah.
They might be just playing live in their own city. They don't release tapes on European labels or release anything in particular.
Or tour abroad or something.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's definitely true too.
And like currently in Finland, there's a lot of artists who are releasing on like international labels. And there is indeed the scene that is like this wider experimental scene that nobody is really interested beyond the social circle.
Yeah.
But there is the physical scene within noise scene, what is kind of this international phenomena. That people who release tapes and create something worth hearing on other side of the world.
Yep.
It's a different scene than
Beyond
the kind of local scenes.
Yeah, that's a curious point, and I wonder how you could articulate that, or how do you differentiate that? What is the difference exactly? You know, what is it? Intention? I mean, a person has to want to. I think, like for me, I wanted to connect with artists abroad. Of course, I also felt like a natural connection there with some of the labels and people, content-wise or thematically, however you want to put it. But maybe it's just that these guys and girls in their local scenes, they have no interest in, you know, playing anything other than the open mic night, noise, experimental night, like every Thursday or whatever, you know?
Yeah. The blessing and curse of do-it-yourself scene, that it allows you to do it yourself, but it also...
It's on you.
Yeah, it requires you to do it yourself.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of people who kind of don't want the baggage of actually doing it. Like
Well, it costs money.
Yeah.
It's time, energy. I said I played probably more shows abroad this year than in the States that shit costs a lot of money, man. It's not money that I'm not like rich. Just like, yeah, I think I'll go to Japan now. Like, it fucking costs money. So some people probably don't want to sacrifice that or whatever.
Yeah, even like sending a tape on mail
Yeah.
now.
Yeah.
It would be something that if you want to do something more than upload a file on Bandcamp, it will be requiring like a actual like a commitment.
Yeah, exactly.
My view is that they tend to be also somehow, if not obsessive, at least they are creative in a way that they see meaning in that creation. That it wouldn't be enough just like throw MP3 somewhere. They are not satisfied until it's done properly. And that leads to something.
And it is obsessive.
Yeah.
For me, it's obsessive because I'm constantly having ideas in my mind, churning out what I want to do. How can I present the next thing, or all these things that are in my brain that I want to fucking nurture and give life to, or make it physical, make it real.
Yeah. We can't say you are young, but you are still coming from sort of transition time, as you mentioned that you are internet kid. But what does the making a tape in 2024 mean to you?
Technically, internet kid, because I grew up with computers. I'm probably the first generation that grew up with computers, But I remember like dial-up, the fucking crazy ass sound that shit made, and I grew up with cassette tapes too. That was the same time, same era. I was born in 1988, so some of my first music was on tape. And when I was a kid, I would record songs off the radio onto tape and make mixtapes. I'd have the tape queued up, waiting to hear a song, and hit the record. So it's not like that's part of my growing up, and like the format, the media, the technology that I'm comfortable with, used to, and the tape culture with noise is like the glory of the tape culture is impossible to overlook. The importance of tape trading and experimenting with sound on tape is a whole nother world and component to it also. That's a big part of my noise, is processing things on tape, actually. Not because I have to. Obviously, I could just record it on a computer or something, but because it sounds good. It sounds more interesting. And it's more pleasing to work with the physical media type anyways. You feel like you're actually touching something physical. You have a stronger connection to it, if that makes sense, versus just dumping something into a laptop and editing it digitally, sending it through I don't even know what it's called, but whatever people do to master their shit, or put it through a filter in Audacity or something to make it sound like it was recorded on tape. To make a tape in 2024, part of it's just continuing the legacy of that culture that's always been a part of noise and underground music in general. And then also just the fascination and obsession with the physical media formats.
Mr. Umpio was doing the sound in Turku show.
Yeah.
He's like an experienced guy with good ears, but he's also the guy who is responsible for just about all the contact mics circulating within Finnish noise scene. Like, a lot of people can make them. Like, I have ingredients and I have a know-how, but I know that he can do it better, so I have always bought my mics from him. And he's also sort of an expert to not shying to give advice. There's very little of these people who would keep the secrets. You can show like gear. And one time I was taking photos from Rotat. He had set up and he was like, what is this industrial spy taking photos of his gear?
I think Penty's contact mics are making it further across abroad because I know Gaia got some.
Yeah.
I got some.
Yeah.
And I'm sure there's others. So hopefully more people can get. They're great. He's so good at it. I use cranksters and stuff now.
Yeah.
But,
he's also Cranky's expert, and I was listening that almost like, I guess it was 2 or 3 hours Noise Extra episode about contact mics, and I was thinking like, can you talk that many hours about contact mics? But then it turned out that you can actually talk about contact mics.
Probably longer.
Yeah.
That's another artist early on, because I'm from the Northeast, so I was pretty. I discovered Crank Surgeon pretty early on. He played a show in Hudson, New York when I was a teenager, way before I got into noise. But I still went to a lot of these experimental shows. So I knew who he was, and I remember coming across something about some kind of Crank Sturgeon grunt collaboration or split.
I can't at least remember anything.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure, because it's always been stuck in my mind. I'm like, just the diversity of how far the tentacles can reach, different kind of scenes and shit.
Yeah.
I remember that.
But I have always been a fan of Crank Sturgeon, but it was also that I was big fan before I knew how he's like. I knew him by the sound, and Crank Sturgeon. I never really thought what it means. I only thought that it sounds great. The name, like I like something like Vortex Campaign. I think that's one of the greatest names, but I don't think what it actually means.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I know what it means, but I never. It just sounds nice, and Crank Sturgeon was sounding nice, but then I saw him live on VHS tape. It was already in the 90s. I was like, what is this? Like a costume, like a prop, fish costume, and having all these stage props, and like, is
throwing
this
ping pong balls everywhere or something.
Yeah, and the sound is like, it's like brutal and almost like dark.
Yeah.
And really like
noisy.
Ripping. Yeah. And then you see it for the first time, and it was like mind-blowing. It's like before the internet time when Ara Records was releasing some of the VHS tapes. And
I played with him in Florida back in 2016 or 17. And that was a sight to see.
Yeah. The intention was to talk roughly about the Finnish-related connections of Pain Appendix. We have been wondering in various topics, but
I get this. I have the feeling that maybe people were suspected that there was some deeper, direct kind of connection there.
I think you had some collaboration recordings with Residual.
Oh, yeah.
Are they being published?
They are, and it's just waiting on artwork. That's the only thing. It would have been released already by now, but we kind of played hot potato with the artwork. I was going to do it, then I didn't have time to do it. Passed it on to another guy. He mocked something up, didn't fit the sounds. So then we passed it on to Vilho. Vilho's been very busy. So now it's back in my lap, and I committed to finishing it. So once I get back home, I'm going to start working on it.
Other things we haven't yet mentioned that.
Well, me and Mr. Moosehead have been planning on doing something for over a year now. And there's no timeline on it, so it's not like it's overdue. But we're going to have something planned there.
Did you record something with Rotat on this, or was it just a plan?
We recorded our rehearsal session, and according to Mr. Rotat, it sounds very nice. However, I'm here for another week, and I actually sent him a message a couple days ago, and just mentioned, hey, if you've got some time, maybe we can actually record a proper session, like however long, like just record a nice chunk of source and see what comes of it.
I think Mr. Moosehead was watching your rehearsal.
Yeah, he was. Yeah, he was there. The rehearsals, man, it's kind of, you can't pump up your own shit too much, but compared to the live performance, the rehearsals were so fucking powerful. It sounded so good. I was so sure that we were gonna smoke that show, and I think we did good. But the sound at the rehearsal in his room, with his crazy ass sound system, and it was mono too. Maybe that had something to do with it. But it was just pumping out of those fucking speakers, and it sounded so good, man. I thought, man, we rehearsed for maybe 30 minutes.
Yeah.
Just getting all the sounds right. And we both looked at each other and were like, we're good. It's good. Battling the atmosphere, the acoustics, the PA, the volume restrictions at that venue. It did not sound the same. It didn't sound the same.
You can find a report from the special interest
Yeah.
site, and some of the artists, like Anti-Child League, for example,
Yeah.
she was very good, even better than Harsh Ways Festival on that show. And it wasn't as loud, but
I have a different opinion
Okay.
on that. Yeah.
it was because of vocals. You could hear the vocals better, and there was more action maybe happening.
The vocals were better in Helsinki, in my opinion.
Mm.
That I agree with. However, I was standing in the front during the Helsinki show,
Mm.
and it seemed like all of her sound sources, like the violin and different things that she was trying to play,
Yeah.
like she would pick it up and couldn't get the sound to actually work, and kind of abandoned it and moved on. So this is my experience. Maybe I'm wrong, and Gaia, forgive me if you hear this and it hurts your feelings, but it seemed like, from my perspective, standing there watching, what we had was basically just a backing track and the vocals and her theatrics, which was all nice, and the backing track was powerful and it sounded good, but in Harsh Ways, all the sound sources worked. All her contact mics, that shield thing she held up, the violin, and you could actually hear it layered over top the backing track. There's a harsh noise wall sort of backing track, and then the independent sound sources.
It was mainly the vocals which were not heard so well in Harsh Ways.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So in that sense, but then also at Harsh Ways, she got a little ahead of the backing track, got away from her a little bit, like with the march thing. In Helsinki, she was perfectly in sync. That was all from beginning to end. At Harsh Ways, she got a little out of sync with it. So I kind of felt like, I don't know. Yeah.
Yeah, well, I tend to be the guy who likes noise. So I liked both of the shows. And
Yeah, they were both great. Yeah.
And it was kind of refreshing to see the old school industrial tactics when you see that there's like a hand signs and a hat.
Yeah.
And even if it's people might criticize that we have seen this before, and then you can ask, like, have you? Most likely you haven't.
Right.
We haven't seen that for so long time. So it's only idea that people dislike something like that, but they most likely haven't seen it happening.
No, I thought it was amazing.
Yeah.
Both performances were great.
Yeah. And the band has actually gotten a lot better. Like first 3 CDs of Anti-Child League, they are good, but I think all the new tapes are actually better.
Yeah, the Bacteria Field tape is the one I got, the last one I got, that I thought was brilliant. That tape is awesome.
I think that is something that people should actually hear.
Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely. And the Nenzophalia was great. I'd never seen them, so that was cool. I had his daughter. I think her name is Marlene or something like that. Anyways, after I played, we were in the back room together, and she said, "Hey, great performance. I really liked your concept." And I kind of laughed. I was like, "My concept," but I said thank you. I laughed and I said thank you, And then they played, awesome performance, really good. And I was in the back packing up, and she was back there, and I said, "Hey, good job. I really liked your concept." And she goes, "Concept?" And I was like, "Yeah." And she's like, "What do you mean?" I'm like, "Well, you told me that you liked my concept, so I was just, trying to be funny." She was like, "No, I told you I liked your concert." I was like, man, there I go, trying to be funny and looking like a retard. But she was laughing. We were both laughing. It's just the German accent, I guess.
Yeah.
Mika, not to cut you off, but you asked, is there anybody else collaborating with, etc.? And I can't tell you how we first connected because I just can't remember. But we've gotten to be pretty close over the last few years. Me and Mr. Mika, who does Unclean and now Stinkfinger, and we're supposed to be collaborating on something too. And again, these things don't have timelines, so it's not like they're overdue. They're just, I think it's kind of natural when you're meeting people and talking to people and you get closer to people and you're sharing ideas and you like each other's output already. It's like, well, why don't we fucking do something together? Like, let's use some of my sounds, some of your sounds. And so we have plans to do some stuff too. But he's been a great host, a great help. The hospitality that he gave in Oulu, putting me up and showing me around, he's proven to be a really good friend. So
we can also mention that this interview sort of should have been done by Mika.
Yeah, that's
but
true.
there was a schedule. You were quite busy with all sorts of arrangements in both Oulu and Turku. And
just didn't work out.
Yeah. So now I'm sort of stepping in just to fill out Mika, who is the main guy running
Noisecast.
Yeah, Noisecast. I feel that you can't waste the opportunity, that it needs to be done.
And we were going to be here anyway, so it worked out quite nicely.
Yeah. So let's hope we will see you in the future in Finland again at some point.
I'm sure you will.
So thank you for the interview.
Thank you. Cheers.
Noisecast.